Hello everyone, in our today's video we are going to discuss about the Kubernetes core components through Kubernetes cluster architecture. Okay, so guys, let's go ahead and draw our Kubernetes cluster architecture. In every whenever we deploy a Kubernetes, a cluster will get deployed. Let's assume this is a Kubernetes cluster. Kubernetes cluster. Okay, inside a Kubernetes cluster, we will have two main components. One is the master node, which is called control plane, and the other one is worker machines. Worker machines. So let's go ahead and discuss about these two components. Inside a control plane, we will have an etcd, we will have a controller manager, and we will have a scheduler, and a new component called, it's not new guys, cloud controller manager, and the very main component is API server. So and let's see the components inside the worker machines. Each worker machine will have one or multiple nodes. At least there will be one node. So this is node. Inside node we will have a kubelet. Okay, this is kubelet, and we will have a kube proxy. Okay, kube proxy and container runtime. For every node we will have these components. We will have one or multiple nodes, and we will have one cloud here. This is cloud provider API. Okay, this cloud provider API will be connecting to this through cloud control manager, and each node will be connected to this Okay, let's discuss about the control plane components. Hmm. The first one is API server. What is the purpose of this API server? Let's go ahead and discuss about that. The API server acts as the front end of this Kubernetes cluster, control plane. So all the other components will be communicated with the API server in order to access the nodes or the worker machines. This is about API server. Remember, API server acts as the front end for this whole Kubernetes control plane, and this exposes the Kubernetes API. And let's go ahead and discuss about next important component here, which is etcd. Etcd is a highly available and consistent key value storage. Key value storage. It will store all the it will store all the cluster data of this Kubernetes cluster. So we have to make sure this data will have backup plan, because we will use this as the backing store of the Kubernetes cluster. And the next component is scheduler. What will the scheduler do? The main, the very main component of the control plane, which is responsible for watching any newly pods are created and with no nodes assigned, this will select a node for them to run. So this schedules nodes for newly created pods with no node assigned. And how does it choose which node to be assigned to which pod? So, what are the factors it will take into consideration while scheduling that pod to a node? There are multiple kind of factors that will take into considerations, like hardware or software, uh, policy constraints. It can be, or it will take affinity and anti-affinity specifications, and so on. And let's go ahead and speak about controller manager. What does this controller manager does? So this component runs all the controller processes. Okay, runs all the controller processes. So logically, each controller is a separate process, but to reduce the complexity, they are all compiled into a single binary and run in a single process. So there are multiple types of controllers, like examples like a node controller. What does this node controller will do? It is responsible for noticing and responding when nodes go down. That's what a node controller will do. If we go and see what is a job controller, it will watch us for job objects that represent one of tasks. Then it will create pods to run those tasks to completion. So likewise, we have multiple controllers in the Kubernetes controller manager. And we have a lot of lists in this type of controller managers. And finally, let's go ahead and see cloud controller manager. What does this Cloud Controller Manager does. This Cloud Controller Manager is responsible to embed the cloud specific control logic. So what it will do is it will lets us link with our cluster, the Kubernetes cluster, to our cloud provider API, and it will also separate the components that interact with separates the components that interact with the cloud provider or the cloud platform, and it will only interact with the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, in this also we have multiple type of controllers. What does this do? Embeds cloud specific sorry, control logic. So um, these are the main components of the control plane of Kubernetes cluster. Let's go ahead and see the worker node components. Okay, what are the worker node components? In a node, in each node, we will have a kubelet. So what does this kubelet does? What is this kubelet? A kubelet is an agent that runs on each node. If we have 10 nodes, each node will have separate kubelets on each node in the cluster, and it makes sure all the containers are running in a pod. Okay, this is the major responsibility of a kubelet. And let's go ahead and see what is kube proxy. A kube proxy is a network proxy that runs on each node, and it maintains the network rules on the nodes. What it will do is this. So these rules allow network communication to your pods from inside or outside of your cluster. So the major role of a kube proxy is it will maintain the network rules, and those network rules will either allow or deny the communication with the pods from inside or outside the cluster. And finally, the last one is container runtime. What is this container runtime? It is a very fundamental component. It will empower the Kubernetes to run containers effectively. It is responsible for uh, managing the execution and life cycle of containers within Kubernetes environment. So guys, uh, these are the core components of a Kubernetes cluster, and this is Kubernetes cluster architecture. It is very important topic. Thank you guys.